News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset. 800-288-WBAP is our number. That's 800-288-9227. General McKenzie, who was at the time the commander of U.S. CENTCOM, Central Command, and former Joint Chiefs General Mark Milley was testified today, and they did not receive the blame and say it was our fault that this all happened because it is Joe Biden that did this. They said it was, quote, McKenzie said, it remains my opinion that if there's culpability in this attack, it lies in the policy decisions that created the environment. That's obviously Joe Biden. Culpability and responsibility do not lie with the troops on the ground. Obviously, they wanted to do their job, and Joe wouldn't let them. He wanted them to get killed. He's like, hey, whatever, dude, we're out. Milley said he admitted he didn't know how many Americans were in Afghanistan at the time of the withdrawal. And he says, I don't know the exact number of Americans that were left behind because the starting number was never clear. Well, guess what? We found out today it is 1,000 Americans are still there. 1,000, according to Fox News this afternoon. Joe doesn't give a frog's fat you-know-what about any of it. It's all about him, and he did a mic drop. He said that was great, and there you go. All good. Now, one more thing. Milley said, my personal analysis was an accelerated withdrawal would likely lead, he told him my analysis was an accelerated withdrawal would likely lead to a general collapse of the Afghan security forces and the Afghan government, resulting in a large-scale civil war reminiscent of the 90s or a complete Taliban takeover. Funny enough, the Biden administration turned around and starts attacking the generals. Isn't that funny? Shameless of House GOP to use Afghanistan to play politics. They want to distract from their own current failures. Good luck with that, guys. No one is believing that. Oh, guess what else? Remember the Gold Star dad who stood up and yelled about Afghanistan and, acknowledged the fallen 13 there? He was arrested. Remember that during the State of the Union speech? That, of course, is Steve Nakui, whose son slain. Lance Corporal Kareem Nakui was killed in that, one of the 13 soldiers killed in that easily preventable attack that Joe Biden allowed. He was arrested, and we find out that he still is being charged. They have not dropped the charge. So Darrell Issa, congressman from California, said that he has sent a letter to the chief of the Capitol Police requesting all charges be dropped against him. This is going to be real fascinating to watch that part because it appears. I mean, if they wanted to do it, they would have done it by now. It appears they want to make a point here to a Gold Star dad. And by the way, even if it was me and I was the president, or if it was Trump, it's okay to drag him out in the middle of that if that's what you got, because he's disrupting it. But if they charged him, I would send a message over there. You better pardon him now. You better release him now. Drop it. And that way you can, if it's in the news the next day, so be it. Just say, president didn't like that. It makes you look bigger by not allowing them to charge him, even though he was rude to you. But Joe Biden is not bigger. That's not who he is. He's a little guy who is extremely prideful, very arrogant, and refuses to admit fault. And one of the things that happened today, too, that was brought up was there's accountability. There's responsibility, there's accountability. I can't remember how it was worded, but it was really wonderful. Nobody would take blame for this. Nobody has taken the blame for this still to this very day. You know that? Nobody has said, it is my fault that this happened. This was because of my actions, because of me. Nobody has. People have said, oh, it was my responsibility, I was there, but nobody has accepted blame for it. Nobody has been held accountable. Nobody has taken accountability for it. And that's the difference between, saying, I regret that, or, this happened on my watch, or whatever. But nobody has said, this is my fault. Nobody has said, blame me. I did it. It was my fault. Because everybody knows is the commander-in-chief. And he does not think it's his fault. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Rich and Keller, Rich and Keller, you're on News Talk 820 WBAP. The number, by the way, is 800-288-WBAP. Who do you blame for the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal of our military? And how do you think it's affected us around the world and on preventing other wars? I would tell you that it started other wars. It started the Russia war in Ukraine. It sent the green light to anybody who would want to invade us. And I believe that it's also because of that Iran had Hamas and Hezbollah launch their attacks on October 7th of our Israeli brothers and sisters. And I believe we've not seen the worst of it. Who was I interviewing? Oh, yeah. I was interviewing New York Times bestselling author and just a real global leader and somebody who's deeply connected with many people that are running many countries, particularly in the Middle East, with Egypt's President Al-Sisi he's met with and talked to one-on-one, with King Abdullah of Jordan one-on-one, the Saudi Crown Prince he's met with, MBS, and he also was on my show last night for an hour, as you remember, in this hour at this time last night. And remember what he told us, I don't know if you caught this. He said that he is seriously, one of his biggest concerns is China invading Taiwan over the next 8 months. That is something that he's very worried about. He says that is something that he thinks is still possible for that shoe to drop. Well, what has happened? Joe sent the signal from Afghanistan. Russia invaded Ukraine. Never did that under Trump. Only did it under former President Hussein Obama. Skipped Trump. Did it under Biden. Then Hamas, with permission from Iran. And next he fears, and Joel knows, like he writes books that the king of Jordan reads and says, okay, that book's about my staff. Please fly in here and go up in a chopper with me. Let's watch war games. You tell me where I'm wrong. That's the guy who wrote that book, who has written many, many, many of those books. That's the guy who was on my show last night that said, I'm worried about China. When he's worried about it, you need to be worried about it. God help us. That's what I'm worried about with this president happening next. Rich and Keller, you're on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
It's 100% Joe Biden's fault of what happened in Afghanistan. The part that you're leaving out, which I know you are aware of, is Joe Biden also left behind 200 fully functional military aircraft, and the Taliban never had aircraft before. And these aircraft were not just military aircraft, but they contained our top secret military software. Right. And within days of pulling out, you see on the internet pictures of the head of the Taliban standing next to the head of China. So you know that China's probably got a hold of some of these aircraft, and they've got their computer people decoding our most top secret military software. And you're probably also aware that relationship between Taliban and China is developing. So when you talk about what effect has this had around the world? Well, China just acknowledged a Taliban ambassador to China, I'm going to butcher this, Asadullah Bala Karim, in December of 2023.
Wait, who was this? Who was this again? In December 2023, Afghanistan?
China accepted and acknowledged a Taliban ambassador to China. So that's how far that relationship has grown. That China, for the first time ever, has an ambassador from China reporting to China.
And they have a tremendous amount of rare earth minerals in Afghanistan that China's going to harvest too now. Vehicles were left behind here. They were left behind. Those should have been removed before the military was pulled out. Of course, but they wouldn't do that because Joe didn't want that. 162,000 pieces of communication equipment, 76,000 vehicles. Let's see. This is real weird, the total on this. I'm going to have to double-check this because it looks a little weird, but it's from Forbes. I'll mention it come up next. Thanks for your great call, though. I appreciate you. All right. Also, I want to get into Governor Abbott targeting corporations that are buying up tons of our Texas single-family houses. I want to know what you think about that. That's coming up next, too. 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Boy, am I glad. I am very glad that we have put this out there. And that our last listener called us and made sure we were sharing this with you. We have a tremendous amount of weapons. We got the list that most of us may have kind of forgotten or kind of remember, but don't remember the detail. It's stunning how horrific this is. These weapons are already showing up in other battles in other countries. For example, all this equipment, some of it's now showing up in the Battle of Kashmir, where India is, of course, battling with Pakistan. Do you really not? Also, there have been reports we've talked about with the Hamas war on Israel, where there are reports of, I haven't seen 100% confirmation, but weapons in that battle. I mean, there's going to be some unbelievable things that are going to happen that Joe Biden has given away to our enemies. It's disgusting. But let's do a quick walk down memory lane. 22,174 Humvees the Taliban and terrorists have. 8,000 trucks. 162,000 radios. 634 M117 armored carrier type weapons, vehicles. 155 Max Pro mine-proof vehicles. 16,000 night vision goggles. My gosh, that was one of the things they didn't have. Vile, angering. 169 M113 armored personnel carriers. 358,000 I don't know if they're M16s, M4s, what they're called, but they say assault rifles. That's not an assault rifle. There's no such thing. 42,000 trucks and SUVs, pickup trucks and SUVs. 126,000 pistols, 176 artillery pieces, 64,363 machine guns, 33 M117 helicopters, 33 UH-60 Blackhawks, 43 MD-530 helicopters, 4 C-130 transports. Just disgusting. How about they fly one of those SOBs into our next tower? You know what the size of a C-130 transport is? You can fit trucks in there, tanks in there, I believe. 23 Embraer EMB 314 A29 Super, I can't read this, it's so tiny, Super Tucano airplanes, 28 Cessna 208s, 10 Cessna AC-20s. This is insane. This is what Joe Biden's done. I mean, this man, from the day he took office, he's been destroying this country and this world and helping to launch our enemies to launch wars against all of us. I agree with Joel Rosenberg. Watch out, Joel C. Rosenberg, who's on last night, New York Times best-selling author. I agree that we need to watch out that China, and I've been telling you this for some time, that I believe China will invade Taiwan before Joe's over, especially with what we're seeing, because he's the perfect man to have in office to do it now rather than later. My gosh. So we're going to move on now, but I just telling that is just so angering. Governor Abbott takes aim at investors hounding single-family market. Thank you, God, for this. How many houses have you seen bought up in your neighborhood by companies that are investors? There was one that went up that was bought with an insane amount of money from across the street from my house, and it's one of these nationwide investor types based out of Atlanta, I think. And that house, the price they paid for it was insane, and the rent they charged for it is way higher than my mortgage because they had it published. I'm like, oh my, I mean, they're trying to get people to move in there. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Some idiot's paying that much money for that house to rent it? And then how many of these houses are being bought? So this angers me greatly. And just because you live in a nice neighborhood or a really nice neighborhood does not mean that ain't going to happen with you. That is not a barrier from everything I've seen. It's not a barrier from protecting you for a Airbnb VRBO. And it's not a barrier for these investors to buy it and rent it out. In fact, the Dallas Morning News reporting on this today. Wall Street Apes, which is a great account that I follow on Twitter, says new reports show economists have been lying to all of us about the rate financial firms have been buying up all single-family homes. In 2023, they said it continued, saying private equity firms purchased 44% of all single-family homes in America, and that means a death sentence for our middle class. Governor Abbott is now saying that this is distorting the market, making it harder for the average Texan to purchase a home. Governor Abbott is now saying that he's going after them. He is going to go after these companies for regulation, and it's going to be on our legislative docket when session goes in, I think in January, which is not coming soon enough. My question for you is, do you agree with Governor Abbott that we need to stop all these corporations from buying up our single-family housing supply in Texas? And would you also support a forced sale of corporations who own and deem some kind of an amount of housing that's deemed unreasonable to Texans? Basically, do you support regulating these massive investment companies that are coming and buying tons of our real estate, our homes? I do. And, most of us are right-leaning people, conservative-leaning people, and are not against more laws and more regulation. But when you're seeing institutional investors buying up our homes, creating a housing shortage, making our housing prices even higher, I do not want that to be. And I don't know how exactly the law should be written, but I would love to have reasonable measures in place to prevent them from buying so many of our houses up. Because, one of the things I thought about when I read through this today was who's looking out for us. And I think Governor Abbott is. Anything that can stop the housing shortage we're seeing and the housing pricing increases so high is going to help us. I'm going to give you more details on this in a second, but that's my question. Do you agree with Governor Abbott that we need to stop all these corporations from buying up all our single-family housing supply in Texas? And would you also support a forced sale of these corporations who have bought up so much of our housing? This is not going to be easy. But I think there's something we can do, and I'd like to have that happen as soon as possible. 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. It's funny because even the Dallas Morning News editorial board agrees with this, which is something else. I'll get to into that coming up next on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset. 3 lines open at 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. I don't know if you're like me, but I get angry when I see institutional investors buying up our properties. According to an account that I follow, and I followed this before the story was in the Dallas Morning News. According to an account I follow, Wall Street Apes, in 2023, private equity firms purchased 44% of all single-family homes in America. They say they will continue to do it in 2024 based on their projections. By 2030, private equity firms, they say, would own 60% of all homes in the United States of America. Corporate large-scale buyings of residential homes is what the Dallas Morning News describes it, and that's exactly right. And the allegations are it's distorting our housing market, making it harder for the average Texan to purchase. Let me tell you something. One of the things I wrote when I read this article was who's looking out for us. The number two thing I want to say that I wrote in a separate story that was actually an editorial written about this in the Dallas Morning News today. I almost never agree with them, but this time they're right. They put, the other thing I put was when I'm reading this editorial, I put our biggest driver for wealth is what? Our homes. Do you know that? The biggest driver for American wealth is homes. Just living in your home and caring for it as any responsible owner would is one of the biggest, most powerful drivers of wealth. And that's being taken from you. Everything is being taken from us. it seems. So are you with Governor Abbott? Do you support him doing everything he can to stop all these corporations from buying up our single-family housing supply in Texas? And would you support corporations to have a forced sale if they own an amount of housing that's deemed, quote, unreasonable to Texans? I know that sounds pretty onerous, and, people like us tend to be against more laws and regulations. But the Dallas Morning News says, like Abbott, we absolutely believe in free markets, but manipulated ways that hurt everyday Texans is what their concern is. Manipulating in ways that hurts everyday Texans. I think that international purchases and investment purchases by institutional investors has got to be stopped. There's got to be something we can do, and I would support anything we can do that is reasonable. And I'm glad our governor is making this a priority now. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Mike and Keller, you're on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, Mike.
Hi, Chris. How are you doing today?
Good, sir. How are you?
Well, I agree with you about Abbott taking this action. It's necessary because I've lived in Heritage Trace in Keller since 2008. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you that I've talked to several people who rent homes, that the bulk of them are owned by a European company.
My gosh.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make you and your neighbors feel?
The ones that actually here are not too good. I learned this from a friend of mine who is a former NYPD officer, and he had told me about it, and that they'll be leaving soon. But he told me that that was what he was doing. He was paying ungodly monthly rate to these European concerns.
My gosh. Yeah, when I saw that my neighbors when I saw the house went up for sale across the street, I certainly was praying for somebody who is a homeowner like you or me, right. And then sure enough, it was one of these big institutional investors that aren't even here. I think they're based out of Atlanta, and the price they paid for the house was insane. Yes, especially even adjusted for inflation, it was still insane. I think they overpaid to win on the bids. They're coming in, they're swooping down, they're paying cash, and they're getting these bids over all of people like us. And number two, when they put it on the market for rent, it's insane. I mean, I have to do the math again, but I think it's like $500 or $600 or $800 a month more than I pay for my mortgage.
It's unbelievable, Chris, what's going on. It really is. And even in Haltom City, across the street from my best friend, who is a former Navy SEAL, he tells me that they're paying, like, for this itty-bitty home, like $2,000 a month. And so there's like 3 families in here almost.
Yeah, well, if 3 families in one home is definitely not okay. The regulations I've seen in most places in North Texas here, including where I live, is no more than 4 people that don't have the same last name. You have to be, related, same last name, to be in that house more than 4 people. If they're all different names for those 4 people, that's it. You got 5. Double check that if you want to get that enforced in your community. Joan in Virginia, here on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Hey, Joan.
Hey, nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you.
I just wanted to let you know that this is a problem all over the country. In Virginia, or southeast Virginia, where I happen to live, in the few years, I've observed that homes in what were single-family neighborhoods, very nice single-family neighborhoods, 3 or 4 bedroom homes, sometimes 5-bedroom homes, quite large. They're being purchased, and very shortly afterward, they're renting out rooms, and single rooms to people for anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500 a month.
This is the most. This is a really vile thing to do to our homes and our communities. It really is. Well,
it's essentially rooming houses, if you think about it. I you know what's going to happen between parking and traffic and people who are not caring for the property. I mean, it's inevitable.
Renters don't care for property as well as homeowners do because it's not their property. It's a default de facto thing. It's just what it is.
That there's a tremendous housing shortage for affordable homes now. So this is why people are, especially when this year is a hereditary area.
You're breaking up on your phone there. I lost you. You can try to say it again, but you're cutting out.
Well, I'm just saying this is a military area, and so there are a lot of single people looking for a place to live, and so there is a market for individual rooms in these homes that are in nice neighborhoods. Well,
and that's the point. These are nice neighborhoods. You're saying what do the houses go for typically in the neighborhood you're talking about?
Are you talking? $400,000,
right?
$350,000. Probably an average, a median house range here, but 400,000 is not unusual. 600,000 is not even unusual anymore.
What's neither here anymore either. What's just particularly nefarious about this and just vile and disgusting to me, reprehensible, is the one thing that is our big drivers of wealth for us middle class folk and even lower middle class folk and such is the home. And to look at it as this institutional investment and it just suck it all up makes me think of those cliche, soulless corporations that are just vacuuming up everything, our lives, our ability to live in peace and to grow our income or grow our wealth is being sucked up by soulless corporations that don't give a frog's fat you know what. And it just... Yeah, it's just very, very, very angering. Thank you for your call, Joan. It's happening in Virginia as well, according to her. So I like the way they put it in the editorial, agreeing with Governor Abbott in Dallas Morning News today. The legislature can make it harder to make it more difficult for heavily capitalized firms to use housing as a pipeline to profit. It's like a vacuum cleaner coming in and sucking up our neighborhood at the expense of us and our neighbors. And then one more point they made in the news article today is the income needed to buy a home in Dallas is now north of $121,000. You can't buy an average home in Dallas now if you're not pulling in $121,000 in a home in a year. This is all going to taking us to a very, 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 very bad place. And this administration is, this is a very scary time right now when you've got this administration destroying our ability to live without having to spend everything on just sustaining ourselves. There's so many attacks from so many different angles that I appreciate anything that can be done to try to make housing more affordable and to keep families in homes, not institutional investors buying them all up. All right, coming up next, that was pretty depressing. So coming up next, we're going to have a little fun. We got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Several fun, shorter stories to just try to make us laugh and joke around a little bit. It's next on the Chris Crock Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset. Oh, I think we'll start out with this one. Screaming crocodile handler nearly loses his genitals after 15-foot beast runs out of patience and clamps its jaws around him in front of horrified theme park visitors. Would you like to hear that? Yes. All right, here we go. This is it, right? And you're going to hear the man. This is just north of Durban, South Africa. And this guy, honestly, he deserves it. Because he's prodding. You'll hear him prodding and poking and egging on this crocodile. It's 15 feet. It's massive. It looks like a dinosaur. And then he gets what's coming to him. By the way, he's poking the thing with a stick. He's talking about, are you my boy? Who's my boy?
Come.
At this time, the crocodile has its jaws on the man's genitals, and he is throwing them around while with his genitals in his jaw. I wouldn't be surprised if this man has lost one of the two things he had there before. I would suspect he won't do this again. I mean, all these years he's been around them, probably working with them, I don't know what, and then all of a sudden, what are you doing prodding this thing and poking? That's what a crocodile would do. Man, is it scary looking, that thing. It's huge. A shocked crocodile handler came within an inch of losing his manhood when this 15-foot beast bit him between the legs after being poked with a stick in his enclosure. The experienced reptile expert, who's an a-hole, obviously, was giving a display to dozens of visitors at the Crocodile Creek theme park just north of Durban, South Africa. The Nile crocodile, the largest living reptile and with the most powerful bite force in the world. He rode that thing. That's a magic ride. He suddenly whipped its head round and clamped its jaws on him. The shocked handler shrieked as he saw the predator latch onto him just below his waist and pull him to the ground, and a second, slightly smaller crocodile ran to join the attack. Horrified tourists screamed. They were shocked, weren't they? That the crocodile bit the guy who kept poking at him and taunting him. Horrified tourists screamed as the giant croc kept the handler pinned down, but he managed to stand, and with the beast with 64 teeth released, allowing him to run to safety. All right, he probably hobbled to safety. All right, here's another story. Rare macaw treated to mango gelato after surviving a hawk attack while stuck in a tree. What the heck? What does that say? What? Right?
What the hell are you thinking?
All right. Oh, this is a Louisville man. Huh. NBC5 reporting the pet macaw spent 2 days stuck in a tree near Louisville Lake, and then he tries to get free, all to have that happen to culminate in a hawk attacking him. He just wants to be free. His beloved pet macaw safe after a hawk attack. At least he found his bird. We were loading our luggage back up in our house after a vacation, and somebody left the door open to the back patio where we're swinging in and moving stuff in, and then all of a sudden one of the birds just flew right out, and my poor daughter was so sad, and we looked everywhere for so long and never found it. May have been attacked by a hawk too quickly. That's like a treat for a hawk, like a hawk. It's like a little snack. It was a little what are those things called? Budgie, the little parakeets. All right, so 48 hours the guy spent trying to rescue his 15-year-old brightly feathered Catalina macaw named Samba. So anyway, he says it's like your child is at the top of a tree. Big gust of wind blew out of here nowhere. That's what startled him. Wasn't fast enough to run after him. He just flew. So he's up there and he's getting attacked by a hawk. 2 days later, I tried to lure him out of the tree until 9:30 until he went to sleep. I was shooing off the hawks. Oh my gosh, they were going to eat up his macaw. I mean, that's just a simple, that's an easy target right there. The call I heard wasn't your typical bird. It was a little different, said a man who had a day off and wanted to decompress by the pier there at Lake Louisville. Anyway, so he's squawking, "Hey, I'm here." His wings clipped. He can't fly along. Oh, my gosh. He was a dead-on target. He got spooked by fireworks. Anyway, at some point, he got a cherry picker boom lift that was donated, and somebody brought him in there and scooped up the thing. Wow. Okay. Richard Simmons apologizes for confusion. This happened today. It was on WFA TV Channel 8. Social media post by Simmons said he was supposed to be a motivational message about concerns about his health, but it sounded like he said he was dying. Richard tweeted out on Twitter that he was dying. Quote, "I have some news to tell you. Please don't be sad. I am ... dying. Oh, I can see your faces now. The truth is we are all dying. Every day we live, we are closer to our death." Well, what do you expect us to react to that? That means you're dying. You're dead. You're going to be dead soon. People flipped out, and then he says he had followed up the next day. "Sorry, many of you have gotten upset about my message today. Even the press has gotten in touch with me. I'm not dying. It was a message about saying how we should embrace every day that we have. Sorry for this confusion." Dude! 75-year-old had his spokesperson confirmed to CNN he's very healthy and happy. I love Richard Simmons, but dude, that wasn't even confusing. It sounded like you were dying, dude. You said you were dying.